for you to be able to bring in this kind of people into the country for the purpose of getting power, then there has to be something really significant in that. You have to be people in power to be able to do that. You have to be influential. They have to come in through borders, and even those who are supposed to be guarding the borders as well, like how the military are supposed to be the one guarding the borders and protecting the country, of course, from invasions, will be the one allowing these people to come in with their weapons. Militias are not like they are coming with cutlass. Look at what is happening right now between Israel and Iran. How are they able to stay from up? Don't you watch American movies? They will just stay from up, look at location, see movement. They will just say, okay, 1 2 1 2. There's no way I would come back to normal conversations without looking at what happened in Benue State, and it was very devastating.
Fired for almost 5 hours. They met a stiff resistance here from the police. Immediately when they met the resistance, they moved towards Yelota New Market. There they slaughtered more than 100 persons. The incidents lasted for more than 5 hours.
I was told that my wife tried escaping with one of her children, but she was shot in front of the door where she fell, and they butchered her. So when I came in the morning, I identified her by a piece of wrapper that was left from what she wore because she was completely burnt. I picked her and the child that was with her and went to bury them. The other 3 children I could not find because so many children were burnt beyond recognition, and I could not differentiate mine.
But you see, what has been happening in Benue State is not something that just happened today. Some of you remember this actress.
Today, cow better pass human being. Benue State, they are just killing people every day, and there is nothing anybody can do, nothing. The state is in a mess, rendering children homeless. This is too much now, come on. For some days I've been thinking and I've not, this is mad, this is crazy. Please, man, everybody should just, in Nigeria, everywhere in the world, just be praying for Benue State. Pray for Nigeria, pray for Benue. This is painful. I won't lie, the feeling is not nice. The feeling is not nice one bit. The feeling is not nice at all. We are very hospitable people, and this is what we get. Very accommodating state, this is what we get for thank you. This is not good though. The killing is not good. Stop the killing in Benue State.
May her soul rest in peace. Today I'll be discussing about this situation, and just for those who will not have the time to watch to the end, because I take time to look at things in a more holistic, detailed manner, I think that there is a Fulani agenda in Nigeria looking at patterns that comes from the past. Now, this might echo the sentiments of what we heard Mazi Nnamdi Kanu talk about. Some people call him a prophet, but why he's still in detention and still under trial now is something I find quite appalling. But again, we'll discuss about that sometime in the future. And also what at least the former head of state, of course, himself said. President Olusegun Obasanjo looked at this whole Fulanization and Muslim agenda, of course, in Nigeria. And if we now start looking at the past and what has happened in history up till now, what I can deduce from this whole analysis, as I'll be doing that, of course, in this video, is that indeed the Fulanis themselves, or those who are the headsmen that have not been proscribed to be officially a terrorist organization, because the ideology is that some of them are, some of them are not, at least in the eyes of the public.
His perception is corroborated by retired Colonel Shobo Najid, who said he served in the north during his active days in the army.
3 or 4 different types of Fulanis in Nigeria. And we have those ones that are from Niger. Those are the ones that are the most wickedest you can think about. We call them the Sulubawas. And they are the ones that rear cattle that have torn horns. And if you see them, you know that these people, they are deadly. So those ones, there's nothing you can do about them. They are from Niger. Those are the people that were from his disbanded army, who were thrown out of the barrack without the army, without the nation collecting their weapons from them. Rather than them carrying the stick, they now resorted to cattle rearing with their weapons, which they got from the government, because there was no government that was checking them to recover those arms from them. If you look at history, you discover that the Nigerian Fulani men, they are not troublemakers. We do exercise with them. Each time we go on foreign, I have 25 cattle in Kebbi State. because I was a commanding officer there, and now the cattle I have, I left them there. It's under the control of somebody. And in Bauchi, I have 12 cattle. I gave them to a cattle rearer, and my cattle are there. So the Nigerian cattle rearers, they are not the troublemakers. Those ones, they are itinerant people. They are always moving. So they don't have a settlement. And the government should be able to integrate them into the system. Before now, they are already integrated into the system. Because anywhere the Fulani man goes to, they are accepted in the community.
If any village a Fulani man goes to is being accepted, who decides the acceptance or rejection of a Fulani man? By conquer or by conquest? How do you now decide to know that these ones are the good ones or these ones are the bad ones? A previous video I made in the past, of course, a Fulani man was saying that when things like this happen in the communities they find themselves in, is because they have settled the village leaders and then they give them the access to do whatever they want. So sometimes as well, those that should be held accountable are the leaders of the communities for which they find themselves in and they get to operate. So the Fulanis will say that they have a distinction, of course, amongst themselves. But if there's an effective way to actually curb this, because we are going to look at how these people even got into the system, like the bad Fulanis as well that you see right now being talked about, and why this is also politically motivated as well, because we have to look at the facts. Let's get on.
And nobody antagonizes them. It is when the foreign Fulani men started infiltrating into Nigeria that we started having this problem of militancy and armed banditry.
They have an agenda, evidently, at least those we see clashing with farmers in their own communities, of which I will have to tell this, of course, at the beginning of this video. Fulanis, as an ethnic group, if you had to put it so, were not ab initio with respect to Nigeria. Come on, go read history. They were not part of the geographic location called Nigeria. Rather, they migrated to Nigeria to actually find existence in the country. But again, as well, we'll look at this deeper as we get to go on. So this also builds the foundation for what I'm discussing about today. And everything, of course, I will need to talk about as I get to show you, of course, evidences. You know, it's facts over sentiments here, so we don't make noise here. We'd actually get to juxtapose what I am saying right now at the beginning of this video. If you are in for the conversation, relax. We have a long way to go.
You remember this Boko Haram issue started since 2012.
Welcome back to the conversation. For those who are meeting me for the first time, my name is George, BRG, being real George. So I try to be as real as possible in every conversation I have on this platform without any sentiments. We face facts. Ikuo nke na buni ikuo na comment section one na piaswongi on a regular. Imakai se me here. Forgive me, of course. You might say that I'm speaking from an Igbo sentiment, but you see, the more languages you speak, the more present you are. Should I go on? Anyway, let's get on to the main fact of this conversation. You know, this video you see on your screen here is not just any regular video, which I'm going to be playing for you here, from a former naval officer who talked about the experience with respect to the insurgency and insecurity issues we have in Nigeria. I'm going to play this video for you just as we get to go on. But let's look at a bit of history. You know, I think it was actually intentional that, you know, history had to be scrapped from schools. I'm a millennial, so what I'm discussing about right now, of course, many people that are probably my age mates or even the Gen Z may not understand jack of what I'm talking about. But I would always expect that the older people who are watching my platform or watching me should have conversations in the comments, because I learn a lot from the community here. And if you just got here, it's okay. You find your place as we get to go on. And let me read this as well to you. Like I mentioned, because I had to write my notes, if not I would talk plenty. The Fulani people were not originally part of a specific geographical entity that is known as Nigeria, as Nigeria is a modern nation state created by British colonialists. Now, you have to understand that even Nigeria itself as a construct, which also makes it important that even the British colonial system came and destroyed, or what I say, ended the then caliphate in Sokoto that was established by the invasion of the Fulanis, and what actually happened to the establishment of that Sokoto caliphate. Might have been probably a good thing if you look at it that way. But again, of course, I will not say that the British colonization of Nigeria was entirely bad, even though we are still reaping the effects of that, of course, right now, because in the end, the last time I checked, you are speaking English and you are able to understand me despite all these diverse conversations we are having of different ethnic groups, because of that whole sense of colonization. all the same, but let's look at some facts right here. However, the Fulani have a long and significant history within the geographical area that became Nigeria and are a major indigenous ethnic groups in West Africa because of their migration and what I say them being pastoral, of course, by default settings. Like you would say the Igbos are maybe probably business oriented, and maybe you would say Yorubas are more educationally inclined. There's a stereotype of every ethnic tribe, of course, with respect to what they are being known for. But again, we'll get on to those conversations as we get on. So let's talk now. So talking about their origin and their migration, the Fulani are believed to have originated in the Senegambia region, West Africa, around the present day Senegal and Guinea. Remember this particular location, Senegal and Guinea, because it takes us to one particular exposition that was made by an APC chieftain who talked about how the Fulanis that we have in Nigeria are not really the core Nigerian Fulanis, but the imported ones that are the one causing this havoc. But as we get on, of course, we'll get to decide if that is actually the case or if it's still the same agenda that had been, of course, ab initio from the 18th century. Now, this whole migration of the Fulanis, of course, happened between the 8th and the 11th century. Looking at their arrival to Nigeria, the Fulani pastoralists began to arrive in the northern part of what is now Nigeria, then known as Hausa land. Remember, it's really important as well for you to know that the northern part of Nigeria, of course, where we have Sokoto, was then known as the Hausa land around the 13th and the 15th centuries. They initially settled as clerics and scholars in Hausa states like Kano, Zaria, and Katsina. If you look at the map, of course, like you could see on your screen, you could see where the location, of course, is and where they actually get to come in from. Okay, looking at the neighboring countries, of course, we have. Now, it becomes very important as well looking at that strategic position of which all of these things, of course, gets to start. So them coming in, of course, into a Hausa land, they settled as what? Clerics. Now, that is where religion, of course, becomes a very important role in this whole conversation. That's why if you look at what is happening in Benue, constructively, of course, you would typically say that the chief people themselves probably would be Christians, not Muslims, or those, of course, inhabiting that particular location. So it's easier, of course, to put this under a religious kind of persecution, if you had to put it that way. Of course, we have seen these headers themselves in the past kill even people that are of their own religion as they carry out their quote and unquote unknown government activities.
Those Fulani headmen is not a real Fulani. The truth about the matter is that they doesn't have a base. All they after, like, if you ask them where they come from, they will not tell you. If you catch them, they will not tell you they are real bees. We are not praying to be meeting with that kind of people, because even us too, they are hunting us. In fact, they hunt us, they hunt our cows, they will kill us and carry our cow, run away with our cows. They will join them together with their own. So a real Fulani could not do that kind of thing to kill somebody, not even his own cultural person. A real Fulani, it doesn't belong to somebody. Like if somebody going to plant his farm, to go and enter his farm to eat his all what he planted for, his crops. Actually, I was praying for those people, that those bad people spoiling the nation, we call them spoiling the nation, to be in a good shape, and our government to put hand to help us to pitch them out in us, because many of people, they are thinking we are bad people. All of us Fulani, we are bad people. Well, we are not.
But again, of course, I would call them, of course, terrorists. In my own opinion, you don't have to agree with it. Just facing facts, of course, here squarely. Now, let's talk about the Sokoto Caliphate. Now, the most important event in the Fulani's history in Nigeria was in the 19th century jihad led by Usman Danfodio. Now, you might have heard this name, of course, come in the mouths of people like Mazin Nnamdi Kanu, Governor Otom, and some people who have spoken vehemently against what is happening in Nigeria as we have as a contract, of course, today. Now, this holy war launched in 1804 resulted in the establishment of the Sokoto Caliphate, a vast Islamic empire, note Islamic empire, that encompassed much of northern Nigeria. The question we have to ask ourselves is that when they came into quote and unquote the Hausa land, did the Hausa land themselves have an established
Usman
religion?
Danfodio was an ethnic Fulani who found himself living in a predominantly non-Muslim area, which falls in what is now northern Nigeria. That was the area where he lived. The area now falls in northern Nigeria. Though some people in the area were Muslims, others at the time practiced traditional beliefs. Usman Dan Fodio succeeded in accusing the Hausa leadership of the area of practicing an impure version of Islam and of being morally corrupt. He then launched a series of jihads among a population that was already restless because they were disconcerted with their leaders.
Were they Muslims by default? That is something, of course, we need to talk about, because as they came in, of course, they came in, of course, here as, aside being pastoralists, of course, here they came in, of course, as, clerics, scholars who were knowledgeable, of course, with respect to the Islamic agenda or something. That's why when you see people talk about an Islamic agenda and also the Fulanization of the country, it begins to also make sense looking at the construct. Boko Haram, of course, exists today with the whole idea of, their religious sentiment and what they believe in, of course, should be the standard of how the country itself, or what I say, the regions for which they actually get to operate, should be. And capitalizing on the illiteracy of people, of course, and also the poverty of the people, and more like even making people believe in the host communities where they actually get to operate that, the government is not even providing better, resources for them and all that. So, they are becoming an alternative, of course, fighting for them. And that is how they primarily get to assimilate into societies and become part of them and really have a livelihood, of course. But we'll get on to that as we discuss one of a very wanted terrorist who was recently found in the midst with soldiers with the recent Katsina peace situation that has been going on between those who are the badness or the Fulani headsmen and the communities, of course, in Katsina. I was even watching the governor of Katsina. I was wondering if this man is normal, even with the things he's saying. But we'll get to that conversation, of course, as we go on. Let's go back to history. Now, if you look at what happened in the 19th century, it becomes, of course, a significant trajectory looking at the Fulanis, of course, as they exist in Nigeria as a construct today. Now, the Holy War, like I just mentioned, which was launched in 1804, resulted in the establishment of a Sokoto Caliphate, a vast Islamic empire, and encompassed much of northern Nigeria. This led to the significant integration of the Fulani into the existing Hausa society, with many adopting Hausa language and customs. So, as much as it was more like you know what a Holy War is in the Muslim construct? Because it's all about the religion, of course, over whatever exists already there. But as much as they had this so-called Holy War, which happened historically in the Hausa land, of course, in the northern part of Nigeria, would I say there in Sokoto, they also had to, integrate, of course, with the people there, adopting the Hausa language, of course, here, and their custom. But by default, of course, it's not really in the Islamic construct as well here to really have that seeming assimilation, of course, with cultures that is different from what is being upheld by the Islamic religion. Just so you know that, okay? But let's go on, of course, to the core of this. While others maintain their nomadic traditions, the Caliphate established the Fulani as a ruling aristocracy in much of the north. This now becomes quite significant. So you come into a land, stay there, you are welcomed, received. Nigeria is known to be a country that is actually much welcoming. Even Nigerians are kind of like that, of course, when it comes to, accepting people and having open arms. But you come into a land and then you stay there, and over time, of course, get to overthrow them and now become the one that is lording over them, while they become more like your servant, if I'm to say so. But we'll get into how this actually happened as we get to go on, of course. Who is Usman Dan Fodio, for those who might be hearing his name for the first time? I remember I learned this thing then when I did a bit of history, but it wasn't really something that really stuck into the core of my mind, because history then wasn't that much of, a course that we were encouraged as well to learn then. But now when I look at these things from a distance, I'm like, a lot of things have happened in Nigeria, and I think these are conversations we need to have now, especially with these Gen Zs that don't really know jack of what is going on. Now, Usman Dan Fodio, born in December 1754, he was born in Hausa land. So it's not as if he was part of those that just came. His people came, but he was born in the Hausa land, died in 1817. Sokoto Fulani Empire, was a highly influential Fulani Islamic scholar, philosopher, mystic, and a revolutionary reformer. I want to tell you something, like, if Nigeria has to really go forward with respect to what we see happening now, one thing I think is really important is like Nigeria would need a revolution for there to actually be something significant happening. Now, either we get to have a leader that will holistically tackle the constitution we have right now that holds us as a nation and also looks at the country itself and the system of government you are practicing now that makes it look like some people are being marginalized over the other. Or we just get to have an overhaul of a system by a very strong, impactful revolution. Because that is also what defines this Usman Dan Fodio. And you will get to understand how he was able to really overthrow the kings in the Hausa land to actually install the caliphate that I'm talking about right now, which leads us to what we are discussing, of course, currently, of course, happening in Nigeria. Now, what did Usman Dan Fodio himself do? He is best known as the founder of the Sokoto Caliphate, one of the largest and most powerful Islamic empires in Africa, one of the most. And even right now, of course, when you look at the leadership of this particular caliphate, it still traces down his own, would I say, lineage. Of course, it's hereditary, just for you to know. So if these people, of course, still exist in the same line, of course, one thing is very certain, that they would actually follow and subscribe to the ideologies of the originator, or would I say his belief systems. And I have to be very clear on this. So indeed, of course, one thing I always tell you, those who watch my conversations about things that happen in church and religion and all that, the only people that I always tell you that can actually change your mind or perspective on anything you believe are those who are your teachers, those who are of influence to you. Probably I may not even be able to do that because you don't even know me from nowhere. You just watch me. The same thing also applies to this particular person right here we're discussing about, Usman Dan Fodio, with respect to not just being a scholar, of course, but when it comes to Islamic teachings, of course, he holds it to a high esteem, being someone that traveled around, of course, like you would say, an evangelist, speaking, of course, on what he holds up to a high esteem, which is the Islamic religion. So how did the jihad itself start? Did it just happen all of a sudden? There was a reason. And as I get to discuss this reason, of course, with you, you get to really understand, see the similitude of those kind of situations, of course, happening right now in Nigeria in the 21st century, and it's going to begin to make sense. The growing influence and critics of the Hausa rulers led to the increasing tension. In 1802, the ruler of the Goba attempted to assassinate him. Listen, first of all, there was an attempt to assassinate Usman Dan Fodio, someone that is not just a regular, but someone that influential, by the Hausa leaders. Why? Because even he himself was also criticizing their leadership and everything. Just like how we would expect the pastors today and religious leaders, of course, to speak up and criticize the government and everything with respect to what happens. What would you expect? Naturally, of course, the government, after God, now governments, like we always say, the government can do and undo. You know that, right? And that was also what happened around that time, because he was vocal. But note, he was not just vocal as someone that was just educated, but someone that was also a religious scholar. And when it comes to religion, of course, which is the opium of the masses, it can really shape and really control people. That's why when you see people call on pastors and call on church leaders or call on clerics or something to speak up when things like this are happening in the nation, it's very intentional, because people know, or we know, that their voice, of course, and those they control is very powerful. I even experience that here a lot when I probably get to speak or criticize some of them. I see their minions, of course, right here manifest. Do you understand what I'm saying? So in response to this particular attempt to assassinate Usman Dan Fodio, in 1804, Usman Dan Fodio declared a jihad, a holy war against the Hausa states. This was supported by a diverse group, including his dedicated followers, discontented Fulani pastoralists, and oppressed Hausa peasantry. So it's not something that just happened from just their own corner, the Fulanis who came and settled there in the Hausa states, but also some people who, the poor, the people who felt oppressed, who were from the Hausa origin. So it wasn't more like a tribal clash, but it was also there. Some of the Hausas were part of what happened then, after he declared that, looking at his own influence and his persona. Then what happened? The jihad was successful, and in 1808, he and the forces had conquered most of the Hausa city-states. In 1809, he established the Sokoto Caliphate. Headquartered in the newly founded city of Sokoto, he was proclaimed emir. After 1811, Dan Fodio largely retired from active political and military leadership. dedicating himself to writing and teaching, while his son Mohammed Bello and brother Abdullahi Dan Fodio continued to expand and administer the vast empire. If you understand what I just read for you now, then it begins to make sense that the construct we have today as Nigeria, indeed, what happened to the Hausa people, because now if you look at the ethnic groups we get to say in Nigeria or something, we always say Hausa Fulani. But Fulani as well, in fact, Fulani itself is not even a national language, I would say, like categorically, if you have to put it that way. But again, some people would argue with that. It's okay. That is why when Buhari himself gave that authority or that permission, that license for there to be a Fulani, was it Buhari or something? Was it the Buhari? Yeah, I think it was the Buhari government that gave that particular access for there to be a Fulani radio station. I think you show what a Fulani radio station in Nigeria. It raised a lot of alarms, because why would you be having a separate radio station for the Fulani community? Oh, because you are Fulani, we know that, of course, for sure, but why so? And if you look at currently, of course, with the whole conversation about Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, one of the current trending, or would I say, accusations against him by witnesses who are, coming against him, those who are prosecuting him, of course, in the trial, is that he has a station of the whole IPOB that was not licensed to operate. So that means even having a station itself, I was a bit sketchy when I came across that news, so forgive me if I'm making a mistake here. That is also part of what he's being prosecuted for, that he was operating, of course, unlicensed. But that is just one part of you looking at why the sound wave is very important. What is in the airspace. That's why social media, of course, right now is making people become more aware, even though it also has its own dangers, as we get to see what happens right here. But of course, it can be used as a very good tool. So if that is even something that is worth prosecuting Mazi Nnamdi Kanu for when it comes to his radio, that means, of course, you should not underestimate the power of what happens in the waves, what happens in the media. Like you see that even after Very Dark Man went and then reported about the incident in Benue, a human being, of course, of a Fulani tribe, I guess so, came out and was giving a threat to him. And even the things he said were very questionable, because the way he actually made it look like in what he was saying to Very Dark Black Man in the whole threat, made it actually clear that indeed, of course, there's an agenda. Yes, this whole thing would make a whole lot of sense when we look at the person of Ado Eleru, a wanted terrorist with a bounty of 5 million naira since 2020 by the police, seen in 2025 with soldiers, Nigerian army, who were even the one recording him in Castina for a whole peace treaty, peace meeting. And this is someone that is wanted with the bounty on his head. That means he has been living in Nigeria, not outside Nigeria. He has been living in Nigeria, freely walking around. And even when you see him, of course, physically, he was not arrested. In fact, in 2022, this same person was being turbaned over there in Zamfara by a king, an emir. For what reason? We are going to get into that conversation. So that you see that Nigeria itself is gradually becoming a joke, at least to these people who are unknown gunmen, bandits. I will call them, of course, terrorists, in the name of being herdsmen. And I have to be very clear on that. It's my opinion. You don't have to accept it. But before then as well, let's look at this news, because what this man, of course, is going to be saying here would make sense if you understand what I'm about to read here, of course, to you. This was reported back in 2022, and it was actually on Premium Times and also here on Business Day. Kawu Baraje. And the headline as well here says, how we brought in Fulani militias from Mali, Sierra Leone, Senegal, others to win 2015 election. Now, we are not just talking about the Fulanis that are already existing in Nigeria. It's just a different conversation entirely. But more were being brought in ahead of the 2015 election. Let's look at the report right here. And the report says, revelations have started to be made on how Nigeria got itself into the current high level of insecurity in the country. Abubakar Kawu Baraje, a former chieftain in the All Progressive Congress, on Monday traced the origin of the current insecurity in the country to the influx of Fulani from the neighboring countries like Sierra Leone, Mali, Senegal, Niger, Chad, brought into the country for election purposes in 2015. He said this in Ilorin as part of the activities to mark his 70th birthday anniversary. Your birthday. Someone would say that should have been your death day. why you people caused this. But anyway, happy birthday, as if it was in 2022. Because the thing is that when you leaders do things like this, one day. He also backed self-help initiatives by the Southwest governor, stating that responses of Sunday Boho to the herdsmen menace were necessary because the federal government fell in its principal responsibility to secure life and property. If this whole situation was not happening, would there be a Sunday Boho? Would there be a Maz in Nnamdi Kanu? And if you look at the way Nigeria is, look at the map itself. These people are they are gradually that are leaving the north, of course, they are coming down to the east, to the south. Now, even in Igbo land, of course, you are hearing killings in Enugu, you are hearing killings in Abia. What they want to do now, of course, if I'm thinking logically about it, from the villages, because all of us, okay, we are in the city, we are in the town, we are in Lagos, we are here. But some of you forget that you have roots. You have a village. Every man has a village. Whether you are in a city where it's more economically viable. If they take over the villages, where would you go back to as home? You will go home and be dragging your land, or dragging your father's land, or dragging your ancestry with the Fulani man. Because what I think they are looking for right now is that sense of settlement. And we will get to that point when we look at the wanted terrorist and what he said in a phone call when he was called about this situation that was happening, because he is part of the whole menace when it comes to banditry. When he was called, what he said, we are going to listen to the audio recording as well here together, so you listen to the things he said about this whole situation. But let's go on, of course, right here. We are not asking the right question on how the same Fulani we have been living with suddenly turned out a menace. They said that the Fulani men working havoc in the country are not the Nigerian Fulani. But I just read as well to you right now how the Nigerian Fulani, of course, came about. Just so you know. Not really indigenous, but actually through an overthrow of the Hausa land, and now merging, of course, with the Hausa to have as well the Hausa Fulani. And just for you to know, of course, in Nigerian population, they are actually the most populated. If you look at the percentage, of course, overall, that is something significant as well. That's why when we talk about election like this here, it's always like, well, once they are standing for you there in the north, of course, you automatically more like have a bit of a guarantee. Oh yes, of course. That's why you see them fighting over the non-endorsement of Shetima when APC went to, do their campaign over there, and it was quite a menace. But that is a different conversation, of course, because they were saying that it's not as if Shetima is not being endorsed. When it comes to party rules, of course, it's only one person that is being picked and flagged, and that person now decides who is going to be their vice. Are you sure that Ketim Shetima is going to be the vice picked by Tinubu in the coming 2027 election? But the funny thing is that we are still in 2025. 2026 is still a long way to go. Now they are talking about 2027 election. This whole thing of playing politics with people's life, it is very, very disheartening. And I will tell you so. Look at just for Tinubu to even go there to Benue State. Kids were put on the street to sing for him. Sing what? Just for him to go there to Benue State. It's as if it's a gathering, something that people are supposed to be mourning. And the same headsmen, the same terrorists will be in the bush watching you people say, oh, this is what they're doing. Oh, so we even attracted him to come here. Okay, interesting. And the funny thing is that even the said governor of Benue State, Catholic priest. Okay. Moving on as well, he says, according to him, the Fulani causing security problems in the country were brought in to help facilitate victory in 2015 election. After the election, the Fulani refused to leave. I and other like minds wrote and warned those who started APC with that this was going to happen. But nobody listened, he explained. So indeed, of course, him being an insider, of course, is saying this. No one had really come to dispute what he said over time, because I was looking for a counter argument on that. That means being an insider, of course, is part of the politicking process. It's not just bringing in just Fulani, so they brought in militias. So what was their purpose? What he didn't say was, what was they supposed to come and do? To create insecurity so that it becomes a leverage for why they will say, no, Buhari is someone that he's a military man before. And many of the people that supported Buhari, I will tell you, categorically was because this is a military man. So when he comes, he will just do one order and this Boko Haram will just fail. Listen to Olusegun Obasanjo here, what he did to a location in Bayelsa because he is the military commander. Listen to this.
The invasion of a village in Odi where the whole village was wiped out.
Of course, if I have soldiers and police who are the instrument by which I should maintain security, and I send police and they were killed, and I send soldiers and they were killed, what do you expect me to do? If you were in my position, what will you do? You will fold your arms? You answer me, my dear brother.
Definitely.
Okay.
Now, if you look at this particular context now and ask yourself, why is it that we are not able to defeat insecurity the way he was able to use the security forces to wipe out a whole village? As you heard him, of course, attest to. Of course, the whole village themselves cannot be as sophisticated as maybe the police themselves are or the military themselves are. Can that same energy be channeled to telling the people, go into the bushes and then free them out and wipe them out? No, now, can it be done so? And the funny thing is that I believe suspiciously, of course, that these people themselves who are doing these things in the name of whether religion or just for them to, build settlements for themselves wherever they find themselves with this whole situation. I believe that there will be people in the military. There will be people in the military that are involved and giving them information that are part and parcel of this whole situation. Either they give them information that they are coming or whatever. There will be people, either because of their tribal sentiments or something. And of course, it's easy for them to easily infiltrate and become part of the military. Recently, of course, there have been situations that the military are saying that people don't want to join them anymore. So even the security architecture of Nigeria itself is quite questionable because you don't even know if we have enough men. Who now wants to even join the military, of course, looking at how they even get to play politics sometimes, even with the life of the military people themselves. You send them to go and fight and then you don't even give them proper ammunitions and they will go, and those people that the ammunitions they are using, when they do their own kang, those people are doing boom, boom. Even you yourself, you ask yourself serious question, who sent me come here? Now, with what I just read right now, okay, how were they able to bring in these people? For you to be able to bring in this kind of people into the country for the purpose of getting power, then there has to be something really significant in that. You have to be people in power to be able to do that. You have to be influential. They have to come in through borders, and even those who are supposed to be guarding the borders as well, like how the military are supposed to be the one guarding the borders and protecting the country, of course, from invasions, will be the one allowing these people to come in with their weapons. Militias are not like they are coming with cutlass. Now look at what this man himself says, a former naval officer. Look at what he says here about this whole situation. Okay, let's listen together.
You remember this Boko Haram issue started since 2012. Yeah. And I was in the military intelligence that time. We arrested those people. It is my organization that actually conducts interrogation and interview. And they mention names. I mean, I can't come on air and start mentioning names of people that are presently in government now that I know. Presently in government.
This was like far back 2012. So these people did not just wake up and then just start. No. This insecurity is a business to some people. Big business. What do you think now? This was used to campaign against Goodluck. Buhari came and said that Boko Haram has been defeated technically. Is that what happened? Buhari is done. Now Tinubu is here. Now, now what do you see as a conversation going on? Still insecurity going on. Let's go on.
That the boys that we arrested mentioned, some of them are governors now. Some of them are in the Senate. Some of them are in Aso Rock. Why should a government try to cause this kind of embarrassment and insecurity to the sense of what happened yesterday? And the solution I gave them in 2017, because when I identified the center of gravity for General Shocking, and they couldn't pursue it, because some of them were ministers. And what I'm saying now, the Department of State Services are listening to me. They know them.
They know.
So the solution I gave them was that if we can't pursue the policy strategic level, because the people that we need to talk to are also, going to be difficult to deal with. I said what they should do now is to conduct two things. We should buy blimps. The blimps are not UAVs. They are not drones. Blimps are equipment that can fly up to 10,000 feet, 30,000 feet, static if you want, mobile if you want, and they carry a lot of payload. We saw them in Afghanistan. We saw them in Kenya. This will be something that can give us real-time intelligence, and we can know where these bandits or terrorists, where they emanate from, and when they finish operations as they've done, where they go back to.
Okay. Well,
they did not buy this equipment up to.
Okay. Do you know what he's saying is pure simple rocket science. Recently, even the military themselves came out this is an old video, just so you know. They were talking about finding a Chinese person in the midst where they actually went to go on operation, and they are suspecting that the Chinese person was actually also helping them with the drone operations or something. Let me play the video so you don't look as if I'm actually making things up. Watch this video.
Days after troops in the northeast arrested the Chinese national, military authorities say investigation is on to determine what the suspect, who is alleged to be a miner, was doing in a military operation area.
There are so many illegal miners all over the place. But the question is, what carried him there as at that time of arrest? And why was he in an operational area where our troops were conducting operations?
The investigation is coming barely a month following the arrest of Pakistani nationals suspected to have links with terrorist groups in the country.
So the Chinese national has been detained and he is undergoing interrogation. When the interrogation is completed, then we'll be able to furnish you with the details.
Arrest of Chinese and Pakistani nationals suggests that foreign individuals or networks may be supporting insurgent groups like Boko Haram and ISWAP through logistics, training, mining partnerships, or technology. This raises concerns about the international dimension of Nigeria's terrorism problem, with external actors aiding domestic threats.
And this is what this man is talking about, having a military equipment that they can be able to have an oversight. You think if this was America? Look at what is happening right now between Israel and Iran. How are they able to stay from up? Don't you watch American movies? They will just stay from up, look at location, see movement. They will just say, okay, 1-2-1-2, parakatake etepo, mbe eketepo, ereto, bagadada, everybody bulugudo. Because one thing is for sure, if you cannot see them this way, you can definitely see them this way. And those things were not bought. Even if they want to buy those things, he knows that there are people that sponsor them who are in government, who are the ones. Those people, wouldn't they know that this is what is happening? Because if there's, the funny thing is that these defense officials, they know those who sponsor them. They have gotten them. Why haven't they gone to arrest them? Oh, immunity as governor. Yes, still, people's life are wasting. There was one man that came out and talked about this thing one time. His video went viral. The next thing, of course, we heard that is a man himself is dead. Whether he was killed or not, we don't know. Let's look at the conversation further.
Is said to be involved in something as devious as this. The laws are clear. This person is meant to be arrested, questioned. I mean, it's quite clear. So is it a policy problem? We have the laws. So what is stopping the security agencies from actually enforcing the law, since that's what they are?
I think what is stopping them is like when you are a member of a church and your pastor have decided to be at a certain level of spiritualism and you're a member of that church. You cannot be higher than your pastor spiritually. You can't, no matter what you do.
So this is the same religion you spoke about?
Yes. In real life, you see that the defense secretaries cannot conduct any operations that is not sanctioned by the commander-in-chief of the armed forces.
I like the way he intelligently draws the religious aspect of it. And it's what we have been seeing here. When I speak, that is why we cannot reason together. Number one, because I'm not under that authority you are in. You dare not even question and say, oh, what your pastors, you dare not question your pastor and say what he says is wrong or not, or you can't. But I'm not under the same modus operandi like you. So I can look at something objectively and speak. Kaskia. So that allegory he gets to make right there will make sense. Because everything falls in the hands of the commander-in-chief. Look at what Tinubu did after the Benue State massacre. Do you know what is 2? I just sat down and I was thinking 200. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 200. It's not 220. Imagine heaping 200. Imagine heaping 200 bodies. That was, I couldn't even imagine that. And someone was even saying that it's over 200. Please watch this video.
More than 200 people were killed. When I woke up this morning and I got the story of what happened, the first 7 calls I put across were all killed. The first 7 guys I called.
You tried to call, we're all dead.
Exactly. They were all dead. So in my village today, if you speak to someone, just be very rest assured that in the next 1 week or 2 weeks, you hear the sad news about that person you've just spoken to. And do you know, before now, just last month, about 20 people were killed in that same village. They are the Fulani, and it's not ethnic profiling. They are the Fulani, it's not ethnic profiling. When people want to be politically correct, they will say, no, that is an ethnic, it's not, and that is why you see the Sultan of Sokoto will not react to this. He reacted when just about 11 people were butchered were killed in Edo State, the so-called hunters. They reacted. They put up Northern Elders Forum. They made several press conferences. Many governors stood up. The governor of Edo had to travel to some of these states to go and say sorry. Just 11 hunters, that is alleged hunters, if really they were hunters, who were killed. Now 200, nobody in the north is speaking. Because that is the collective agenda. Jihad and the complete takeover of the land of our people. And let me tell you, so I'm saying it authoritatively. I'm an authority in this area. I was born and raised in Jos. I speak Hausa as my first language. I speak Hausa better than I speak Tiv. And let me tell you, this thing they call intelligence. We are the sources of this intelligence. The government sometimes use the narrative of intelligence to confuse you, as if what they know is different. They know exactly what we know, or we even know better. Because we are the sources of this intelligence. Many of my friends from the adjoining villages in Nasarawa State, who are of different ethnic group other than the Fulanis, anytime the Fulanis are mobilizing, like this attack, they told us day before yesterday. We communicated to the security force. Nothing has been done. They communicated to us.
No, just hold on, because this is too much to rush. I'm sorry. Are you saying that you got an intelligence report as a civilian? Your
Yes.
community had an intelligence report about this particular attack that killed over 200 people, and you.
My sister, do you know the funny thing? It is no longer secret. It's just like the secret cultism in Nigeria. They gathered their AK-47 in a community called Giza in Nasarawa State, in the boundary between Nasarawa and Benue, in Giza and Kadorko. All our friends from there, and they come out in the open with their this and they hold a meeting openly. You know, they are going to strike in Hirota, and then some people begin to beat them farewell. Allah ikekulafia, Allah ikekulafia. May God take you safely. May God take you safely. Yes, they came in more than 100 bites. Listen, but that is how your country has degenerated. That these things are done in broad daylight. It has degenerated. And let me tell you, let me also shock you. About 7 soldiers, I'm saying it as it is, about 7 soldiers joined them from the Giza, the community, adjoining my own village. And they arrested one who uttered all this, made this confession.
And there was even intelligence on that, of course, before it happened. Yeah. I hear this and I say, Chai, may this one not reach my village, oh. This one not reach my village, oh. If what is happening in Nigeria doesn't feel concerning to you, it concerns me. It's really concerning, I would say. Let me go on.
They cannot.
No matter how small, little
They cannot.
So,
when the Yar'Adua government decided to put an end to Niger Delta militancy, that was in 2007. What he did was simple. He called all the security chiefs and all the intelligence chiefs and tasked them to come up with a solution. The Defense Intelligence Agency, the National Intelligence Agency, the Department of State Services were called with the Inspector General of Police and the Interpol to come up with the solution to the problem. Then the problem was Niger Delta. The president was Yar'Adua. He was dispassionate. He wanted to solve the problem. Within 6 months, we solved the problem. I remember I have to go to Angola to go and bring Herioka, and nobody in Nigeria knew what we did. All we know is that since 27, 28 that we conducted our operation under Yaradua, Niger Delta issue has remained manageable. This government does not want to resolve this problem. They are escalating it because of tribal and religious sentiment. You remember this?
Because of tribal and religious sentiment. Because of tribal and religious sentiment. Brings us back to how we started this video. Tribal, religious sentiment. I want to draw the curtains today on this part, and then probably I will get to look at other things, of course, like I have promised. You know, I have people that have a very low attention span. The video is almost getting to an hour. This video, Kaka, should be 3 hours. But we have other things to discuss. Tribal and religious sentiments. Remember that. But here we face facts only. Just facts. So what happened in Benue should be condemned seriously. Today, Sunday Jackson has not yet been freed. What did Sunday Jackson do? His land was being invaded. He defended himself. In the process, the person who came and attacked him, and he retaliated with the person's own weapon, and the person died. Today, Sunday Jackson is not free, even up to the Supreme Court. And the foot of who it lies under right now for him to be free if he gets clemency from the governor of Adamawa. Till today, he hasn't gotten that clemency. The bishops have written to the president. Nothing. If someone like that could be jailed for years in his own life out of self-defense, and a village has been wiped over 200 and nothing has even been done to even get the culprits, what message is the government passing to the people? Even when you defend yourself, imagine they come like this now and they were able to just lie to one person, assuming even if you defend yourself, you still have a case to answer because you may not go scot-free. Sonny Jackson at least is alive today, trying to fight for his freedom. But the 200 people that couldn't defend themselves are not alive today. What is happening in Nigeria is very saddening. But we will go deeper, of course, to look at some other conversations next time. See you in my next video. You're welcome.